People are listening and watching because they are encountering lots of headwind. It's not easy to do your own business, to take the risks, to put everyone's lives, dependent upon the outcome. And so there's a lot of pressure on there. When not at work, when not thinking about work, what do you do to be able to manage the pressure so that you can be more present as part of your formula? What can you do outside of work, or maybe it's in work, so that you can level out the heart palpitations and be that much more present? What does Caleb Chapman do?
Well, I got some great counsel from a friend when I was going through a tough time in the past, and he encouraged me to take up motorcycle riding, which scared me to death, which at the time, something that scared me to death seemed like exactly the right kind of thing I should try. And so I did. And it has become my favorite way to force myself to be present, and it again being able to understand what it feels like. I think for so many years as a founder, I never turned it off. I never turned off my brain, and I know both of you know exactly what that feels like. Mm-hmm. And probably every founder watching this, listening in, you can just go 25 hours a day, 8 days a week without ever pausing the brain. And of course, it's just that's not healthy on so many levels. And I don't think I really even knew how to disengage from thinking about my business until I started riding motorcycles. And of course, when I'm on my bike, just
Hello, everyone. We're back for another round of Fearless Founders, and Caleb Chapman is here. Oh, you're going to love this man. Caleb here is a friend of mine and a big, generous heart. And recently he did something for me that made me realize, we need him on our podcast. And I was talking to Ike and said, let's do it. Let's have Caleb on. Caleb has a fantastic story. He started as a professional musician and is a Grammy nominated artist who formed a business 30 years ago because he found that there was a missing component in the music world. And I'll let Caleb explain it more in general. But more importantly, through 30 years of this startup, he's had to pivot and innovate. And now we get to hear from him all of his stories, what he's learned, what he's had to battle through, particularly how he's been able to get now thousands of students through his music programs called the Caleb Chapman Sound House. It's nationally recognized. People from all over the US come. He has had his students ultimately, and I'm going to pick this open, been able to have his students collaborate and work with members of big bands like The Killers, Maroon 5, Journey, AC/DC, and Neon Trees, Toto, and the like. So Caleb, dude, this is tough. What you've done is just amazing. And most importantly, his music students go through the program at the Caleb Chapman Sound House. And every one of them who goes on towards college and furthering, those who applied for scholarships have not been denied scholarships. That's how good of a program he has. So a lot of appropriate brag. Caleb, we're so glad you're here, dude.
You're making me blush. You're making me blush. No,
dude, tell the team, we talk about starting a business is the ultimate underdog position. But I think that, I was thinking about it, being a musician is actually potentially the most underdog position as a solo, because you start off solo.
Yeah.
Maybe you're good enough to be part of a group or a band or whatever. But I just realized being a solo musician may be the ultimate underdog, never mind making it. What do you think, Caleb?
I think you could be right. And I remember when I first had the idea to start this program, thinking like, how can I make this as difficult as possible? I'm going to combine a start with music, and and education. I'm going to take all three of the hardest things and stick them together and see what kind of life I have after that. So I honestly thought I was crazy myself for attempting it, but it's been an incredible ride, and I would trade any of it.
I'm writing down ultimate underdog story right here.
For the name of the episode, that's great.
Think about that, huh?
Yeah.
So, hey, Caleb, but you have a special thing that I want you to hit from the moment we start this whole topic about how AI is just coming in, and then most of our viewers and listeners are tech people.
Mhm.
But the fact that you've already got a plan in which you can flourish as a business, and how you even started this Soundhouse Academy program. What is it again? Come on, tell the team, tell the audience.
Well, look, I love that the name of your podcast, Fearless Found, because a lot of times I think people look at what we do for a business and assume that it's about music, and that would make sense, right? We're talking about celebrities and kids and concerts and all that stuff. But really, at the end of the day, guys, what we're in the business of is training confidence. For the last 30 years, I've kind of had this performance training lab to experiment with being able to communicate the skills to give these young artists confidence. And I realized in the process that it's exactly the same to train confidence in any discipline, not just music. And that was the void that I saw in music that gave me the drive and the excitement to create something new. Most music schools that I've ever come across in my travels around the world have been entirely focused on training music tech. So the scales, the notes, the rhythms, and they have neglected to teach anything about performing. And I realized 30 years ago that without those performance skills, the music doesn't go very far. You're not going to have an audience, no matter how art in music, if you don't know how to communicate with others. And that realization 30 years ago has become incredibly valuable today, because as we are talking about AI, we're at a moment in time where we've all been trained in an education system in whatever field we're in that valued information, it valued content creation. And now with AI, information and content really doesn't have any value anymore. It's infinitely available. And certainly in the music world specifically, we're at a time now where anybody that has a phone can create a piece of music that sounds pretty darn good. So that ability, 10 years ago, you'd have to pay a lot of money to somebody to write a piece of music. Today, you can do it for free. Everybody can. So what is valuable now? If information doesn't have value and content doesn't have value, what does? And I think, guys, that value across every industry is going to be the ability to perform. And performance meaning the concept of being fully present combined with connecting, combined with being able to operate under pressure. That's what performance is. And the good news is that it's trainable. The bad news is we haven't trained it, and we haven't even thought about that. But that ability to perform, in my opinion, is the most valuable human advantage that we have in the AI era. And I think we're moving from the information age into what I like to call the performance age. That's where we're at, and that's what's going to be valued across every industry, that ability to show up and to be able to function under pressure.
I love this. He has such a big vision. We've been talking behind the scenes. He nailed it. Think of every leader who can only lead if they're present, if they can ultimately be under pressure, right? Execute. There was another thing you just said, but that nails it.
Connect.
Connect.
Present, yeah.
Right? Present, connect, under pressure. That's for every performer, every industry, every area. And just before I forget, I jumped in with that, communicating to our listeners and to our viewers. What Caleb has produced is a machine that allows young, high school and under, mostly, kids to be able to get on stage with Kenny Loggins, which is the last performance that I got to see with his team, with Huey Lewis, with Steve Smith, the drummer from Journey, all of these people, and they're performing under the big lights, big stages, sound engineers and everything, and they are amazing. They are amazing. And I've been bands before, and I've seen so many adults looking down at their feet playing the guitar, and I'm going, oh, please. So truly, you hit the nail on the head. Performance is never part of the musical training. Number two, performance is not going to be captured by AI when it comes to real humans. And number three, leadership and all the attributes of being present, connecting, under pressure. We need it. Ike, what do you think?
Yeah,
What a
I think think it applies to broader area as well. Like everybody is talking about AI is going to replace jobs, this and that, like the automated and all that. I think AI is making people more productive. Maybe companies will have fewer employees, but everybody is going to be even more valuable. And the CEOs, founders, we are coaches for our employees. Like I pride myself hiring young people and nurturing them. But this resonates with me a lot. Like if I can have an employee that is performing, like you said, but with customers, customer success, maybe tough situations, maybe the company needs to perform better overall. Like if we can actually coach these people, be more human, right? Like not rely on the AI and just look at the feed when the times are hard. That would apply to everybody. Like I'm curious to learn here, like how you do it. Like what is the best practices that you apply here with these kids?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked. I have actually developed an entire program for training these performance skills, and that's one of the things that has made it so difficult. Is I realized there was a deficiency especially in the music space, in the model for training performance, and I looked to find some kind of methodology or resources, and I couldn't find it. So I was forced to really kind of come up with my own methodology based on what we were able to see in this experiment of the sound house that worked. And so what I've created, I call the performance loop, and it's a series of steps that can be implemented anywhere and replicated and taught. But we probably don't have time to go in
Sure.
the detail with it today. But basically what it boils down to is that most people, first of all, think that they need to practice or learn. In this case, for music, let's just use music as the example. But they may want to sit in the practice room for weeks until they master the piece and think that that's what's going to give them the confidence to get up on stage. But as well as anybody, it doesn't matter how well you know a piece. When you get on stage for the first time, if you haven't done it before, what happens?
You freeze.
You freeze. You freak out and you forget it all, and it just goes away. And so a lot of times we, as performers in whatever field we're in, we've done all that preparation and we get up on stage in the moment and we freeze and we think, I can't perform. I don't know how to perform. And we're waiting until we have enough practice time that we can have the confidence to take the stage. And it's all backwards. Like that's why most people just give up at that point. When in reality, the way to get confidence being on stage is by constantly putting yourself on stage and bigger stages. The example I like to use with our young musicians here is like, I think it's so easy for everybody to grasp right off. But imagine that we were all in the same room and we had a plank of wood that was 2 feet wide by 8 feet long, and I asked both of you to walk across that plank on the floor. You'd have no problem doing that. Now, what would happen if we took that exact same plank, the exact same movements, and we put it between two buildings 150 feet up in the air? All you got to do is walk across the plank. Has the skill changed? No. Were you totally capable of walking across that plank? You could probably have done it blindfolded, right, when it was on the floor. But what happens, Ike, as soon as we put it between those buildings?
Yeah.
We'd be paralyzed with fear. So the answer to getting the confidence to walk across that plank 150 feet up isn't to keep walking on the plank on the floor for hours and hours and hours till we think that we're really, really good at walking. We're probably already really good right now. The way to get enough confidence to be able to cross that plank at 150 feet is to move it from the floor up to 3 feet and do that. And then move it up to 15 feet and do that. And keep moving it up. And I guarantee all three of us would be able to cross that plank at 150 feet if we went through that exercise. But the challenge that we face as CEOs, as leaders, as trainers, as teachers, is we get caught in that same trap of thinking, I need to wait until my team has enough experience that they can be confident enough for me to put them on stage or put them in the moment or put them in a pressure situation. And by doing that, we are guaranteeing they're never going to be ready to be confident across that plank at 100. We have got to give them opportunities to not only succeed, which is important, we also need to give them opportunities to fail. And actually, both of those have equal weight, as I'm sure you both know much better than I do. But we tend to pamper our teams so much, trying to insulate them from difficult situations, difficult decisions, ways that they maybe might get embarrassed. But we're actually handicapping them in the same way we'd be handicapping our children if we don't get them exposed to situations where they can function on their own. Does that make sense at all?
It makes total sense. Like, just to close the loop on that. I learned this from a friend of mine. His name is Binoy. Is when you have a scar, when it's something hurts, when a failure hurts, that's when you learn the most.
That's true. I've learned like 1,000 things from Binoy, so we don't have enough time.
Oh, hey, so fantastic. I love that analogy. And as every one of our viewers and listeners are leading their own teams or leading a small team, whatever, it's refreshing to hear from someone who's an entrepreneur in a non-tech world, but still using technology. And we're going to go into that phase in just a sec, Caleb, that says, ultimately, we are trying to groom higher performance. And you cannot do that without, in the absence of reality, of real life. I just got a text from a client, and this person was angry because this person says, this is 2026. How can a person not know Excel? What is this person doing? Why are they copying manually all the figures? Are they dumb? Just exploding with anger on this text, right? To me, venting. And it's amazing how ultimately I've always learned this. Whenever we're angry, negative, irritated, whatever, it's actually our own self that we're not happy with because we enable that to happen. We didn't teach them to walk on the plank 3 feet above, 6 feet above, 10 feet above. And then when the moment came for the performance, you're mostly mad at yourself and irritated. It's targeted at that individual, but it's really about self. We didn't enable that person to succeed because we didn't take the time ourselves to first interview for that skill set, number two, train them and allow them to win, right? That's what I'm hearing from you as you say what you've done over there at the Sound House.
Well, yeah, and I think something that I know has been exciting to other business leaders and entrepreneurs that has worked really well for us that might be worth sharing here is starting with the identity and how we see our teams and how we help them see themselves. So here at Sound House, you mentioned we're working with musicians ages 10 to 18, and they're not prodigies when they come in. They're not seriously accomplished or overly gifted or anything. They're average, normal kids who have an excitement for music. They come through the door, and then we turn them into superstars. And they're playing on biggest stages for thousands of people with major celebrities and with no fear, as you've seen firsthand. And I think that that's only possible because of how we help them see themselves. That begins from the first day when they walk through our doors. Most people would call what we do a music school, and that we have students. You're going to hear me use the word students very few times today because that word is not allowed in our culture, our community. It's completely banned. We don't have students here. We have artists. We don't have teachers. We have producers. We don't have a school. We're not a music school. We're a performance studio. We don't, when we travel around the world, we don't have chaperones, which I think of as babysitters. We have tour staff, which are there just to assist. And I learned a long time ago that if I wanted to have young people perform on the stages where professionals perform, to perform music at a level that professional musicians would be performing at. If I wanted all those things to happen, then my job had to come before that, and that was to treat them and see them as those professionals. And if I didn't start there, they weren't going to end up where I needed them to be. And so something as simple as how we use language in our businesses can dramatically change the way we see our team and the way they see themselves. And it's an easy thing to do that it just pays massive dividends in my experience.
You are the masterclass of coaching our CEOs and our leaders here, Caleb. I got it too. Absolutely seeing them for who they are, not for the, maybe I can make this work in the business. Maybe I can be a good employee. Maybe I can be, no, you're the artist. Let's go. And the fact that you don't even have a different bar because they're kids versus a professional musician, you say, no, you're going to be held to the same expectation expectation and high standards of an adult musician, because you're an artist, not a student. And if we can do that at work in for our employee base, hold it up high and then support them in getting to that level, we need to do more of that. I think about all of the instances where we unnaturally tell people that they have to rise to a certain level, then we'll anoint them and grant them the VP-ship or whatever. No, they're already great enough. They're already powerful enough. Just join me in the journey. Let's go make some great music together in orchestrating all of these different departments to hum at that same level, right? That's what we're doing. And we forget that. And that's a beautiful analogy. Ike, you had a comment.
No, I agree. It's the mindset. It's the law of attraction. Like you like behave as if you are that person, and Caleb is instilling that from the start.
In this journey, Caleb, I know that everyone got hit with the pandemic, but you did something very extraordinary, something that Ike and I talk about all the time. We've got to pivot. We've got to be flexible. We've got to innovate. Tell us the story about what happened during COVID and what you did that made you even stronger, the company and you.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly not unique in facing challenges in COVID, but my business was one where it required people to be in a group, in a room. Our format for instruction and training at Soundhouse is entirely ensemble based. So we're not teaching one-on-one music lessons. It's all multiple musicians, usually 8 to 15 musicians in a band, and got to rehearse in a room together. And that was our entire business at that point. And I remember the day when businesses shut down and I went home and, I was 13, no, more than that. Geez, I was 20 years into the business at that point. So it was 20 years of work down the drain, or I figure this out. And I called one of my mentors and I said, what do I do? And on the news, they were saying, we're going to be closed for a couple weeks. And I didn't buy that for a second. I thought we're going to be shut down for 6 months minimum. And I have about 3, if you guys remember, it was mid-March when we all went home from work. And we start our billing, we do our billing for the next month. So our next billing was going to be on April 1st. And so I needed to figure out something quick enough that I could roll it out in 2 weeks to be able to run payments on April 1st. I needed to have a new business model. And so I called one of my mentors and I said, what do I do? And he said, well, what is your business? And I said, well, it's training these musicians in an ensemble. And he said, well, you know your business. And I said, well, yeah, I know the business, but I have to have them in a room. And he said, will your business survive if you're not able to rehearse bands? And I said, no. And he said, well, it seems to me like the solution is simple. You need to figure out how to rehearse a band without them being in the same room. And that was his advice. Like, you just have to figure it out. And I said, well, how am I supposed to do that? He said, it's your business. You know it better than anybody. I don't think you're going to find anybody that can help you find the solution faster than you can find it yourself. Say, go lock yourself in a room and see what you come up with. So I got off that call and it took me 2 hours to come up with an entirely different way to do what we had been doing, utilizing recording technology that was available and having the musicians, combining with Zoom calls, with being able to record parts together and they could listen to each other record and give feedback immediately. And we just pivoted. We just pivoted, innovated. I did training videos over the next 2 weeks on how every kid could record from home, could do their band rehearsals online, how we were going to be doing performances online. And pretty much, as you might guess, everybody else that was trying to do what I was doing, universities, they just closed. They just closed their doors. We didn't ever stop through COVID. We kept going the entire time. Bands rehearsing every week, continuing to put out recording, continuing to do performances, developing technology, innovating. And by the time COVID was over, we came out the chute way ahead of everybody else that had just given up. And but I was ready to give up. I think just the fact that, I mean, this is maybe going back to our last point of discussion. My mentor said, I don't think there's anybody else that could come up with the solution other than you for your business. So just go do it. And him telling me that he believed in me, that I could figure it out, made me feel like I could figure it out. And then I went and did it. And I'll tell you, here's what's interesting, is I had spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars over a decade prior to that, trying to figure out how to take rehearsals online, and I couldn't figure it out. And then in one day, I did it in 2 hours without spending a penny on development. So, think about that one for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What changed? What changed? The thing that changed was I didn't
Belief.
have choice, and number two, somebody told me I was capable of doing it. Those
Yeah.
two things.
Belief. I am so happy that you had a wise mentor. The word I use when people ask me for something and they're my client is, I don't know. And here's the word. It would be presumptuous of me to make a recommendation on something that is not my business, that I do not have the full context. Only you, Caleb, can come up with the right answer. And I'm glad your mentor said that and gave you that belief. And for
Yeah,
those listening,
I think this is very profound. Caleb, you received that feedback. Now you're giving the same speech to our audience, to these first-time founders. Like Caleb, you are the mentor now to everybody who's watching. I think I think that the founders, entrepreneurs need to realize they know their business better. Sometimes they use other people as clutch, like they go to their investors, or maybe investors volunteer. But the problem is sometimes it goes both ways. But investors know your business every 3 months in board meetings. They don't know your business. You do. And I think the way you said it, like you have to solve it. This is your business. You have to figure out is the right mentality. And it applies to so much today what's happening. AI is coming, technology is coming, my businesses are going to be obsolete. I'm going to be automated. AI is going to do all the stuff. There's always an opportunity. It's your job to apply to what you know about your business, about your customers, their problems, their adjacent problems. But you have to be able to lock yourself in like 2 hours and think through. Most people don't do that. They think about it for 5 minutes and then, let me go for a walk and listen to music and watch a movie. They get defeated before they even start. So can we expand on that, Caleb? What do you tap into to be able to do that? What's you know what I mean?
Yeah, and including what do you even teach to your students to get pushed through the barrier, to pivot, to innovate? What have you learned? That's a great question, Ike.
Well, one of my greatest mentors was my dad, which I'm so proud of. He passed just this past summer at 90 years old, and I got so many great lessons out of him. They were always pretty simple but super powerful, and I hear his words in my head every time I get up against one of those walls. And he always would say, look on the bright side. And it seems trite, it seems simple, but when I was really struggling, like when I hit some of those major impediments as a youth, as a kid, he would say, look on the bright side. There's something here that's positive. And I hold on to that. And where I'm going with this is, as you mentioned, like on AI, so many people are crying the sky is falling right now, and we're going to lose jobs in our industry and all this stuff. And boy, when I saw AI coming, the first thing I thought, same thing as everybody else, this is going to be difficult. This is going to change my industry. This is going to change my office. This is going to change the opportunities available to my clients, to my artists. And then I thought, look on the bright side. Man, the bright side is amazing here. In the stock market, the time that you make the giant gains in the stock market is when it falls off a cliff before it comes back, right? That massive disruption is where the biggest opportunity, and it's the same in business. We are looking at this huge, massive disruption that is AI, which means that the opportunities today for business leaders, for founders, are greater than, I believe, than at any other point in my lifetime. This is the time where great things can happen. Great things because of opportunities, great things because of people being willing to innovate and try things that have never been done, and great opportunities because of tools that are now going to be available that weren't available before. Now we can create on a greater scale than was possible even a year ago, never mind 20 years ago. And so first off, I'm always looking for how I can turn the challenges into opportunities. And it's been easy for me to do that because in my life, I've been divorced and remarried. I've lost, my business basically several times, 3 times where the floor fell out and I had to rebuild it back again. And several other things as well. And when I look at each of those challenges that were difficult, the hardest moments of my life, the most challenging things were the best things that ever happened to me. They were the key moments where I was able to step up my level of contribution, of impact, of happiness, of fulfillment. So it's easy for me is to hit a challenge and go, here comes the good stuff. It's how we decide that we're going to look at these things that are coming at us, first and foremost. Secondly, I firmly have a belief that there is always a solution. And if you believe that there's always a solution, then you sit there till you figure it out. I think if somebody ever convinced me that there was a problem that couldn't be solved, I'd be devastated, because I really haven't hit that at this point in my life. There's always been, even though it seems like there's not a solution, if I sit and think and work and research and ask for help, that one's hard. But if I ask for help long enough and do those things, there's a way through. There's a way through. So, and then back to just where we started with moving that plank up. If COVID was the first time I'd hit a major challenge like that, I don't know that I could have handled it. I don't know that I would have really pushed through. But I'd already been through a situation where I had my business yanked out from under me 10 years before that. So I've already been there. I'm kind of, you start to feel bulletproof and not invincible, but start to feel like I can survive this and I'm just going to push ahead. So
yeah, this is fantastic. Ike and I are just smiling inside. Caleb, absolutely. The number of times our businesses have met death, near death, to be resurrected at the last moment has been our defining moments. And everyone listening, please know that you are going to meet your defining moment multiple times along this journey. But I'm going to go back to what your father said. Look at the bright side, right? Look, there is, now that I've been coaching some time, I've learned that most of our limited vision during tough times is because we believe that we are not capable, we cannot get enough money. Usually money is the case. We don't have the right people. No, you look at the bright side and that says, what if you couldn't fail? What would the decision be right now if you couldn't fail?
I love that.
Which is another way of saying, look on the bright side. Because we are too often hampered by our own long chains of anchors in the ground, and we drag it with us instead of snipping it and saying, this is okay. If this means that we change, what if I couldn't fail? What would I do? And you would be amazed at how much more clarity comes to the brain to innovate and think, right? And that's really it. We have to consider that. We really, really, really want to impress that upon our viewers and listeners, that over time, after having gone through so many of these near-death experiences, it never is near death. It's only perceived. It's a perception. It's actually much better. We're way, way more safe. We're way, way more protected, and we're way, way more invincible. But during that time, it's, oh, woe is me. It's just my world. Everything about me shrinks because it's just me, 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 me. And we need to remove those blinders. So your dad's right on that forefront.
Well,
so
everything you just said, but one word in particular just absolutely resonates, and that word is freedom. I love that. And in the performance loop that I train, it starts with something real is at stake. You get up on stage, then fear enters your mind, and then how do we deal with that? Well, we deal with that by being present and being fully present and being able to connect with our audience, whoever that audience is, and then that allows us to move into a space where we can have a great performance. We can do our best, we can present our best, and there's electricity that happens between those that we're performing to or for or whatever. But the final step in this performance loop is that freedom, because once we're able to perform and connect, it opens up all of this, and now we have the freedom to create. We have the freedom to be our best selves as artists. We have the ability to give. We get outside of our own head and thinking about us and realizing that our performance, it's about giving. It's about everybody else. It's about being able to connect with them. And that freedom is the final step. We don't get there without everything else before it. And that freedom then gives us the confidence to go back and start the loop again, which is where we're moving that plank up another,
So you got part of his answer there, right? You saw his sequence. That was good.
Yes.
Hey, building a business is tough. Building a business with little money is tougher. Building a business 3 times is incredibly
I thought you were going to say it's stupid, but yes.
Right? What have you learned about resilience? I think that's the right word for you. You are an embodiment of resilience, because everybody out there is saying, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Should I hang it up? Should I just get a job? What have you learned about resilience that can be shared?
Well, I think first off, and this would be my advice to any founder, is to make sure that what you're pursuing is something that you truly believe in, that you're passionate about. Because if that's the case, it becomes a lot more, well, it becomes an easier decision to stick with it, to continue to keep going. I've always felt like what I'm doing is a calling. People say, oh, you're so selfless because you're helping kids and changing lives and all that. And I feel terrible because I feel like I'm selfish because I love what I do. I love getting up in the morning and coming in and being part of a job that involves art and creativity and kids and then also changes lives. Are you kidding me? Who gets to do that? Who gets to get up and have a job they love and impact the world in a positive way? I am the happiest guy I know, right? Really, genuinely. And that happiness is tied to the work, meaning the work of changing lives, not the work of what the business looks like at the end of the day. I have to keep the business open, but success for me is succeeding at the job, not a dollar figure in the bank account. And so I guess I am selfish in that regard, but it makes it very easy to be committed to not give up when you believe in the product that you're selling or creating or distributing, whatever it is. So that's number one. Number two, I think in addition to being passionate about what you do, it's taking that plank up, just like we're talking about, just giving yourself opportunities to continue to succeed and even to fail, because even if you fail, you realize I got through this before, I can get through it again, and you just keep going. So I think if there's one message, I know we're running out of time here, but to me, again, that shift from the information age to the performance age, everything we're talking about being a founder everything is a performance. Everything is a performance. And if you can develop those performance skills in yourself, you are going to succeed regardless, because you're going to have the confidence that when the pressure's on, you can perform, you can deliver, and it's a practice. It's a practice. Resilience is a practice. It's not a decision. Yes. It's a practice.
Well said. In the end, as we go forward with anything that we put our minds to and commit our resources, it's whether or not we believe in it, and number two, whether or not we can get enough repetitions in there to take the lumps, and that builds the strength to be able to encounter more and more headwind. People who haven't done it before will say, oh, you're so tough, you're whatever, but it's just part of the journey, and you got to get ready for that. Part of why we have this podcast. We want to toughen people up, but to let them know that's what's coming around the corner. You're going to bloody your head here, you're going to stub your toe over there. It's okay. It's fine. It's part of the journey. Choose your hard. If you're an employee, you're going to have to put up with some scoundrel of a boss. You're going to have to put up with politics. You're going to have to show FaceTime, all of those things. Which hard do you want to choose? Your own version of starting your business, or to be an employee somewhere else? That's a different hard. Just a different hard.
Well, and I'd be interested to hear from both of you on this, but a great piece of advice that I got early on was that the tough times are never as tough as they feel, and the highs are never as good as they feel. Like when we think, okay, now we hit it, we're winning, that also is probably not going to last forever. And so that's something for me that I've tried to temper my response to both failures and success, and just try to remain even keeled. How do you both feel about that?
Ike, you have a response?
This reminds me a conversation I heard between Charlie Rose and one of his guests, Mr. Ford. And they said, the highs that shall pass, the lows that shall pass. It goes on and on. I think a good entrepreneur, a resilient one, I think needs to see the horizon a little bit more. They need to look at the horizon, not the peaks and lows, just like where we're going. Our soul needs it. Our employees need it, so that we're not too high, too low on everything. That that's happening to us. But if we can if we can tap into our core values, like who we are, what we want to do in life, and align yourself with the path you're on, I think then you can create the resilience you need to pass those things. Because if you don't, everything is short term, then you're gonna get stuck in one of the bumps or one of the ceilings. In my opinion. So in order to create that resilience, I think we have to have a little bit of foresight of all the where we're going. A small hill in front of us doesn't show the road. So you have to have a little bit of faith, and that only comes if you're, I think, passionate about one of your core values. Caleb, we heard you loud and clear. Because of that passion, core value-driven things that you put in, you can survive the little bumps and little things, and that creates resilience. So that's how I think about it.
So yeah, I love that. That's great. Beautiful.
Caleb, for me, and I'll make this short, I've noticed that people who take the super high highs and the super low lows as real are not yet balanced in their own mindset of how good they are. If they don't feel good about themselves, then they will cling on to the win and make it something extraordinarily more than what it is, as they will the loss, because they're not comfortable with who they are and what they stand for. Hence, I've always said, hey, if you love yourself enough, you will see things with clarity and celebrate and have the team be acknowledged for the wins appropriately, as they would also recognize the losses appropriately with the team, versus making it either a self-pummeling exercise and whipping or blaming the team. You've got to have clarity, and that is done best when you are balanced and have a good stance on life. Otherwise, you're going to be taking it to the extremes, which helps no one. So that's a great question. One last question, because we run out of time. People are listening and watching because they are encountering lots of headwind. It's not easy to do your own business, to take the risks, to put everyone's lives, dependent upon the outcome. And so there's a lot of pressure on there. When not at work, when not thinking about work, what do you do to be able to manage the pressure so that you can be more present as part of your formula? What can you do outside of work, or maybe it's in work, so that you can level out the heart palpitations and be that much more present? What does Caleb Chapman do?
Well, I got some great counsel from a friend when I was going through a tough time in the past, and he encouraged me to take up motorcycle riding, which scared me to death, which at the time, something that scared me to death seemed like exactly the right kind of thing I should try. And so I did. And it has become my favorite way to force myself to be present, and it, again, being able to understand what it feels like. I think for so many years as a founder, I never turned it off. I never turned off my brain, and I know both of you know exactly what that feels like. Mm-hmm. And probably every founder watching this, listening in, you can just go 25 hours a day, 8 days a week without ever pausing the brain. And of course, it's just that's not healthy on so many levels. And I don't think I really even knew how to disengage from thinking about my business until I started riding motorcycles. And of course, when I'm on my bike, I'm not thinking about anything else other than being present in that moment, so I can be safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that feeling, I catch myself during the workday and make sure that I've got points during the day that I check in with myself to make sure that I am being present with the situation I'm dealing with. It doesn't mean that I have to take a break from work, but it does mean that I need to be present with whatever it is I'm working on at that moment. In a few minutes, in a half hour, I'm going to go into a rehearsal with a group of young musicians. When I'm in there, I absolutely don't want to be anywhere else mentally except in the room with those kids making music. And it doesn't mean that the other stuff isn't important, but I just need to put that aside to do my best there. And I think, when we talked earlier about when we're up against a challenge and something that we feel like it doesn't have a solution. Well, step one in coming to that solution is being fully present with that issue, not what's going to happen to me if I don't solve it, and what happened before, and what about this, and what about that. You just tune in and be present in the moment with that challenge, and that's where the answer is going to be found. That is, every time. So
we're going to have another session about motorcycles and how how it changed our lives as well, for sure. Yeah, well done.
Absolutely. Fantastic response.
I want to say something, not a question, but I just want to recognize, because I'm so big into like leaving legacy behind. Caleb, I applaud you with what you're doing. Yeah, you've already left a huge legacy with all the youngsters, artists that you've groomed, and you continue to do that. So congrats. I'm proud of you. I hope you're proud of yourself as well. Great job.
I feel
Yes.
lucky. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well said, Ike. I was going to close with the fact that I got it. I was sitting down with Caleb over lunch, and I said, he's not creating a music school. He's creating, and I'm going to say this, a leadership performance business with music as the first launching. And you have affected, thousands of leaders who can be present, lead with confidence, connection, and no matter what the stress level, because of you and your impact. Thank you for doing what you've done. We salute you, and we are grateful that you even spent some time with us. Caleb, thank you. Thanks so much, bud.
You guys, and I've always learned so much speaking to you, and getting to hear from you today. Thank you for inspiring me and for letting me hang out with the cool kids today. I'm used to just hanging out with additions. Business people this is a luxury for me. So thank you.
Thank you all, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Until next time, we'll see you again. Please share this with friends and those needing that level of confidence that Caleb's talked about. Take care.